Hey guys, welcome to Signal Before Silence. There are some very important things I'm going to mention here. One of them being the FARA registration that Israeli ministry just filed this month for, well, technically end of September for gaslighting and brainwashing and targeting Christians in college campuses, in churches, basically bribing pastors and influencers to push pro-Israel information. This sounds like made up, but it's not. In the video, I go over the FARA registration and talk about that. I also try to be as comprehensive as possible as to how Charlie Kirk's assassination is indeed an extremely important turning point and how is it linked to Christianity and Israel. And people who don't see this linkage is predominantly because most likely they just don't know the Christian angle of it and how important it is. If you're new here, please consider subscribing and supporting. My channel is very, very suppressed. So if you do remotely like the information and you do like this kind of speech to be out there, then your support means more than you can imagine. So hit like, subscribe, share, and that will mean a lot to me. And if you don't care what means what to me, then just, if you care about free speech, support for that cause. And okay, let's jump into the episode. So in today's episode, we're going to go over Christianity's role in Charlie Kirk's assassination, Christianity's role for Israel, and overall what is going on with Christianity and religion, and why is it extremely actually important in this particular case. If you've watched me before, or if you watch my other channel, The Silent Oak, you may know that I am a harsh critic of religion in general, Christianity included, although I do consider myself a Christian. However, I am appalled by what has come of it in the West. And one thing that I realized is the reason why people, conservatives, Christian conservatives, that cannot seem to connect the dots on this story for some reason, is I think that that's because they're missing the biggest piece in the puzzle, which is related to Christianity. Most Christians out here don't appear to know any theology, any history of religion, and that they are by and large the consumers of the Scofield Bible from the early 1900s. But of course, Christianity got hijacked far before then, right around 5th century with the Catholic Church. The Catholics kind of, I guess, in a way, in between themselves have fought it, but at the end of the day, the Pope wears a yarmulke, so we can't, unsee that. But all in all, it's also extremely interesting to me that there are quite a few active voices that are very against Israel and this entire, genocide that's taking place and Israel's actions on U.S. soil. And among them, there's a pretty good amount of actually Armenians, people you have never heard about. Why is that? Isn't that interesting? Anna Kasparian literally just woke up from the leftist bullshit and started to see things, started to make some sense. Dan Bilzerian speaks up about that. And of course, PBD is a big voice who speaks whatever he speaks. He has Jewish friends, so he's a lot more careful and cordial, but he's definitely no fool. So why do I bring that up is because Armenia is the first Christian nation. And we have been mocked for telling people we're the first Christian nation by Jews, actually, because we are like a sharp bone in their throat. The amount of times in history they've been trying to annihilate and finish off Armenia, even till today, how they support and arm, I was going to say Israel, or Azerbaijan, but that was a Freudian slip because there's a lot of Jewish rabbis who believe Azerbaijan is another city of Israel. So make of that of what you will. How does this become significant is just Armenians as the small minority of people who have been constantly prosecuted for Christianity, and I'm going to go ahead and say real Christianity, is still prosecuted today, yet you wonder why? If we're so insignificant, why so much attack on us? And why so much mockery around Christianity? And of course, when I contrast Armenian Christianity with the Western Christianity, it's just not the same conduct. It's just not the same culture. It is quite different. And in 5th century, Armenians completely distanced themselves from the Catholic Church, not because they had a choice, it's because right in the moment when Armenia was caught in a war, the Catholic Church held a council very quickly and just decided that Jesus is two-natured. And this debate was going on for a while. Armenian Church was very, very prominently against the two nature of Jesus. They were on the one nature camp, and I'm not going to go into all of that, other than the fact that the Armenian Church felt strongly that going that direction would bastardize Christianity, fracture the religion, and create hypocrisy. Fast forward to, 1700 years now, and I think we can safely say that has happened. Of course, depends who you ask, but there's one of the reasons why most people do not feel comfortable being Christian anymore. And then after some time in 1900s, Scofield Bible was pushed. This episode is not going to be about Scofield Bible, which I owe you guys. I know I read the comments. I know I need to do that episode. However, in summary, Scofield was a criminal with zero theological background who was commissioned to all of a sudden be published by Oxford, a new Bible with footnotes. So I have some episodes on footnotes and how history has been rewritten and changed through footnotes. I will try to remember and link it below. So why is this significant? Is because when the Scofield Bible was released in early 1900s, late 1800s to very early 1900s, America was the biggest consumer that ate it up. They just fell for it. And let's very quickly just go through some of the differences between the actual traditional understanding of Christianity versus the Bible. And stay with me because this is going to be all about what's happening today post Charlie Kirk murder and why so many people point to Israel. It's not out of hate, it's not out of thin air, and it's just amusing that people don't see Israel's action plan, both what led up to the assassination and now what's happening. Few interesting things that separates, Christianity from this new type of Judeo-Christianity. And let's, refer it to that. Let's just say, what I'm trying to say here is Christianity and Judeo-Christianity are extremely different ideologies. They are not the same at all. And in fact, Judeo-Christianity is trying to eradicate Christianity. This has been the goal since the dawn of times. And every rabbi will tell you that the biggest enemy of Judaism and Jews are Christians and Christianity. So if you don't know this is news to you. If you dig, you will find that it is constant, that Christianity is absolutely marked to be eradicated, completely annihilated. And this is when it links to Armenians as well, actually, because Armenians, both as Christians and as Caucasian race, have been marked to be annihilated. And that's going to be a whole another episode that I have already shot so many times and have failed at publishing. I don't know why this keeps happening. Either the technology fails or I end up shooting it for way too many hours and it becomes just impossible to manage and so on. So when it comes to Israel's number one enemy who gets marked as Amalek and gets eradicated, and how that has happened throughout history, who were the initial Amalekites, and then how that goalpost has kept shifting and changing, how America is also now marked Amalek, as well as Palestinians, as well as Christianity, because they're almost done with the Armenians. And I think that will be a very interesting and very foundational episode. But so for now, let's go here. Biblical interpretation. Before Scofield Bible in traditional Christianity, viewed as continuous narrative with moral and spiritual lessons. After Scofield Bible, divided into dispensations, time periods, where God interacts with humanity in different ways. In my experience in US, this is almost like even Catholics who the Catholic Church at large has technically, actually, I'll get to that. Israel and the Jews. The church replaced Israel. Christians equal new Israel. Replacement theology. Jews remain God's chosen people, and Israel must be restored for end times prophecy. So these are all interesting, because if you read the Bible, there's no such thing as Jews being an ethno race, by the way. The word Jew often appears in a way as if it's like a devout man, a religious person, like Acts, for example. Paul says, like, here in Jerusalem, there were every nation under the heaven with speaking their own tongues. And what it was referring to all those nations as Jews from every nation under the heaven speaking their own languages. So needless to say, the Bible doesn't believe that the word Jew means what we think of them as today, as in some kind of a elected people that have some kind of a DNA linking to anything. Not to mention, it's hilarious for Jews to keep claiming a DNA when they're just the most mixed, unclear DNA of all races. So prophecy and end times, many prophecies were symbolic or already fulfilled. And now with the Scofield, it's future-oriented. Israel's rebirth, 1948, seen as fulfilling prophecy for Christ's return. Okay, so what the Jews have done very successfully is the Zionists, actually. The Zionists, what they've done very successfully is they have created this new Judeo-Christian type of religion, an umbrella religion that has nothing to do with Christianity, and have been feeding garbage to Christians to make them fulfill their goals. So Christianity will be the vehicle in which way the Jews will take over the world and fulfill their own prophecies of becoming pretty much gods. And everybody else will be their slaves. It's in their belief system, in their Zohar, the fact that Jews have a divine soul and the Goyim and the non-Jews do not possess divine soul. They only have animal soul, and so on and so forth. It is absolute, just nothing but extreme supremacy and hate when you get to acquaint yourself with their scriptures and the things that they believe in, but they will tell you that no, that's not what they believe in, and they will gaslight you and try to reject that as if some of these doctrines are in their main Judaism. But at this point, Judaism is just nothing but the Pharisees of the Bible. It's an elite class that is out to control the world. There is no particular DNA tie. This is not a race. This is just an elite cabal who wants to control the world. And there are a lot of people, regular people who have nothing to do with that have been conditioned to think they're part of this so-called made-up race, and they just march to those tunes. Israel is literally populated with American-funded dollars by all sorts of European, Canadian, American, just all sorts of people who are on welfare. I'm not talking about actually the ethnic local people who consider themselves Israelis. I'm talking about this made up new thing. All these people who are occupying the new Tel Aviv are just people that need to be a body count for Israel's goals. And it is extremely easy for you to claim some kind of a genetic, Jewishness, and then go become a citizen there and have American taxpayer dollars to pay you to live there comfortably, very comfortably actually. So, role of the church, central to God's plan. Believers must spread the gospel worldwide, separate from Israel. The Scofield Bible, it's separate from Israel. God will deal with Israel differently in the future. The rapture itself, not a major doctrine in Christian theology. Some believed in a final resurrection at Christ's return. And then in Scofield Bible, it's pre-tribulation rapture. Believers are taken to heaven before the Antichrist reigns on earth. So believers are taken to heaven before the Antichrist reigns on earth. Christianity, salvation by grace through faith in Christ. All believers are part of the God's people. In Scofield Bible, some dispensationalists argued that Jews will have a separate salvation plan in the end times. Now, Christian duty to Israel. This is, I guess, very, very important. No special obligation to support Israel. Focus was on preaching the gospel to all nations. Christians in the Scofield Bible, the Zionist Bible, Christians must support modern Israel as its existence is part of the God's prophetic plan. And of course, the Antichrist in Christianity, the Antichrist is a symbol of evil. That's pretty much it. And then here in Scofield Bible, the Zionist Bible, the Antichrist is a future world leader who will deceive the nations and attack Israel. I mean, it is absolutely phenomenal, right? So how have they given this garbage to the Christians in the West? It just blows my mind, absolutely blows my mind. How do you eat that? Like, how do you eat that? I don't have good words. I'm not being articulate. But so who fell for this? Actually, let me put the screen back. So who fell for this, right? Literally, United States was most affected. This was definitely a campaign against United States. This was to change the generations of US people to do Israel's deed, to bring this prophecy to Israel, to help them become the rulers of the world, the God's chosen, to become eventually gods themselves. So the evangelical and fundamentalist Protestants were the most impacted. It became mainstream in Baptist, Pentecostal, and the non-denominational churches. Christian Zionism became deeply tied to American foreign policy. United Kingdom partially affected, Canada and Australia. So the thing is there are so many people who will say, well, you're out of your mind. This is not spiritual. This is not about religion. This is just about greedy people wanting power. Yes, that is true. However, the vehicle with which they achieve their powers is oftentimes religion. And oftentimes hypocritical religion, because if you possess real belief system, you live the essence of Christianity, it becomes extremely hard to control people because they already have their value system. They're born with it, becomes their culture. So when you don't have that, you have just a bunch of people who have been stirred away from real spirituality and instead told to just go to church every Sunday and listen to some asshole preach, some asshole that's often is bought and paid for to preach Scofield Bible. Then you are just taking in garbage propaganda and doing your enemy's deeds. So religion is extremely, extremely important because it's ideological, and that's what drives a lot of people. So now, I have showed you this before, but I'm going to go ahead and read this once more. So New York Magazine, January 18, 1971 publication. This was a rabbi who just made the statement. If you try to put this in ChatGPT and just say, did a rabbi ever said this? The ChatGPT will likely tell you that no, that's a hoax coming from anti-Semitic tropes. So, but this is a real publication by New York Magazine. It says, I am devoting my lecture here in this Tarrytown seminar to a discussion of the possibility that we are now entering a Jewish century, a time when the spirit of community, the non-ideological blend of the emotional and the rational, and the resistance to categories and forms will all emerge through the force of anti-nationalism to provide us with a new kind of society. Anti-nationalism is interesting, right? Because we see how much Americans are stirred away from that. I call the process the Judaization of Christianity, because Christianity will be the vehicle through which the society becomes Jewish. Look, this is just one rabbi, but you can watch millions of them and they will tell you the exact same thing. They do not shy away to tell you that Christians ought to die. When it comes to Gog and Magog and the 2/3 of the world that needs to just vanish, that includes all Christians. And in fact, if you if you watch a lot of rabbis talk about Christianity versus Islam, or Jews, actually, like there's a channel that goes around just the streets of Israel and asks Jews about Christians versus Islam. They absolutely think Christians are sinners and Christians are more hated than Islam. They see Islam as their brothers because they believe in the same God. Whereas Christians are delusional because they believe in Christ. And hence they are more of an enemy, and they are an idol worshiper, and idol worshiper per Torah deserves death penalty. So this is not me saying, this is the reality of Jewish doctrine. So the process has already begun. There has been a rekindling of interest, mostly among the young, in the non-rational, non-theological mystique of the Eastern religions. So again, non-theological. It's very important for you to be as stupid as possible, as uninformed and undereducated as possible, because if you don't understand this theology, then you will not be able to connect the dots that's happening right in front of your eyes. Right now, as we speak, Israel, 5 months ago, Israel held the JNS Summit. And in that JNS Summit, the entire multi-day conference was about speech in United States. Okay? Both Christianity and speech and social media, and what ought to be done for Americans to think the right thing. So as of today, right now, after all that happened, then come Charlie Kirk and Megyn Kelly types who are extreme Zionists. They have been propped and groomed, and well, I don't know about Megyn Kelly, but she just maybe on her own is like that. But Charlie, from since 18 years old, is groomed and propped to be an Israeli asset. Yet here comes a minor criticism of Israel, and then he starts asking more and more questions. And he's starting to do this at first, just curiosity. Then he gets harassed so much that now he just feels like he's pushed in a way where he's literally saying, more you do this, more you behave this way, more you're going to push people away, while he still pleads for the support and love and says how he practices the Shabbat, he loves Israel, he can't believe this is happening. And the friend of his goes and posts that he is afraid Israel must kill him. Like, really? Have we not learned anything from people who declare they're not suicidal and then something happens? Is this just not saying anything to you? And then, of course, his speech on PBD podcast about October 7th, American perception on Israel has always been, do not criticize, and you have to be in 100% support from the Christian perspective, from every angle, and definitely politically. This is our biggest ally, you guys. This is the most number one topic for Israel. And there are people who don't think that Israel, this thug, this criminal Netanyahu, for example, would take out one of their biggest critics. Here's how important Charlie Kirk was. He wasn't just some critic of Israel. He was the groomed, propped up Zionist next president for the multi-generations to come. On top of that, he was the biggest Zionist Christian voice to keep Christians fed the garbage and keep them sheepish. So all of a sudden, I don't know how you don't understand. Like, have you never been in a position where you have to make decisions? Do you not think, like, if the most important thing you have generationally, all of your rabbinic Jewry has worked on, all of the past Zionists have worked on, and now you're the leader, and now you are in a way fulfilling that, continuing that mission of Israel's glory, you cannot just look the other way when the most important thing you ought to protect at all cost is becoming dismantled. Like, that is insane, you guys. Not to see that, not to recognize the importance of that one, Christians cannot all of a sudden wake up. Charlie Kirk was apparently going to Catholic liturgy. He wasn't converting or anything. He was definitely writing a Hebrew, Shabbat related something. However, the fact that you're already on a trajectory to ask so many critical questions about Israel, then you're getting pissed, and every single time you're getting pissed, you're saying, more you do this to me, more I'm going to dig. Guys, I'm editing this episode and I have to intervene because I'm usually a week behind, especially when I'm too busy. I usually love to shoot at least a couple days in advance and then edit and post, but sometimes when I know a busy schedule is coming, so I try to be a week in advance. So in this particular case, I'm a week in advance, and I just saw Candace Owens drops this episode on today is October 6th, and she has these text messages that perfectly fits in my story in a way, because it's just too good. There's actually multiple text messages she shares that's just so on point with my claim I'm making, so I have to, I guess, insert this in there. Basically, Charlie Kirk sent her a message February 15th, 2024, because we knew that he was attending mass, a Catholic mass, even though he hadn't converted or anything like that, but he particularly, just reaches out to her and says we should chat soon. Catholicism is looking better and better. Okay, this is a year ago, more than a year ago. So this is pretty huge. So you would imagine he was getting close to something. And of course, Candace shows him the graph, how Judeo-Christian just after the 1940s, that's the year, just took off. So much propaganda happened during those years, and we'll see if I'll ever manage to make those episodes before we cannot speak at all on this matter. But another text message she dropped is yet again confirming what is very visible, even if I didn't have this text, but now we have a text. So it's apparently a bunch of people. I think she said 9 people on this chat. And basically, Charlie says, just lost another huge Jewish donor, $2 million a year because we won't cancel Tucker. I'm thinking of inviting Candace. I don't even know how to put it when you think about the dots connecting. I mean, it's all out in the open. Like, how do you not connect? They're overlapping at this point. There's just everything points to the whole Judeo-Christian concept being the number one thing that needed to be protected here. Who pulled the trigger? Who made the decision? And all of that I don't even care, because I'm connecting all of that to Israel, because that's Israel's goal. So even if it was just TPUSA itself, it was driven by Judeo-Christian values. So, and then someone said, ugh, and then Charlie Kirk said, Jewish donors play into all the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. I do think this is what got him killed. I 99.99% think that this is exactly what got him killed. Leaving the pro-Israel cause, which would also pluck him out of the Judeo-Christianity as well, and he would start undoing everything that since 1940s Jews have worked for, and of course earlier, but that's when it just really took off, because America as a power, more subversion tools and media and all that, it became truly their dreams come true. Until now they're dropping the ball because they've become too ridiculously blatant. Okay, let's get back to the show. Why would you, what are you hiding? I think Megyn Kelly said this, what are you hiding to attack us this way, right? Because if you don't want us to look more into it, stop doing this. More you behave this way, more I'm going to dig and understand, why are you attacking me like this? What is there to hide that deserves this level of betrayal of our friendship? So these are very important key points. So let's actually now go through a couple of very important things about pre and post Charlie Kirk assassination. First, they held the JNS thing. So let's first hear Netanyahu's part in it.
You need a solid foundation. And the only solid foundation is the truth. So I want to encapsulate some truth for you tonight.
This is so ironic, because why did I at the beginning say, what's going on, right? Like in the media right now with Armenian voices being anti-Israel is because I think I possibly didn't say why I'm bringing that up. I'm bringing that up because the campaign against eradicating us due to both Christianity and also as the Caucasian race has been ongoing since day one. The second these elites, these Pharisees appeared in the picture. And we've seen this. We've seen our history get erased in front of our eyes and oftentimes stolen or hijacked. We've seen identities built on our identity. It's like someone is wearing a mask that they almost are just stealing elements from the Armenians. And we're just, for the most part, we're just like, okay, that's really odd. That's really odd. Why is a rabbi sending letters to Armenian patriarch talking about do not use the word genocide? Why is all of a sudden Armenian genocide-related stories being attributed to the Holocaust? Just documented Armenian personal accounts of genocide survivors. All of a sudden, these stories are being retold as if that happened to, a Jew in the camps or a Jew during the Holocaust. So we've been seeing a lot of this interesting, weird thing and never really wanted to pick a fight, never really wanted to think that there are enemy or anything, rather maybe just some wires are being crossed, But of course, how many times do you have to notice something bizarre to just be like, all right, okay, this is a no, And God, I could make an entire episode on Israeli propaganda tactic, which we're now seeing on broad daylight, and how it's the exact tactic that Azerbaijan does against Armenia, which I'm starting to become so suspicious of. We know for a fact they're 100% backed financially by Israel, but it's just starting to wonder if they're just freaking crypto Jew or something, because they were put in place during Bolshevik Revolution, right after Bolsheviks came through, just completely fucked up that entire region, created type of conflicts that would never resolve, and put in place the first thing they did is put in place anti-Semitic laws and start just butchering people, anyone who would criticize or, remotely be so-called anti-Semitic. Now we're seeing this happen in US through speech and through social media. It's just silencing. They're purchasing TikTok right now, and they want to talk to Elon for X to make sure that the Jewish voices are, there's one truth, and it's the Jewish truth. Everything else is anti-Semitic. It's insane.
The Lions of Judah, they really fight. We do not ask others to fight for us. We don't ask for boots on the ground. But
Only
we have to
money.
understand that there's another threat on the horizon, and I think it relates to what JNS is doing and doing so ably. And that is puncture the lies. The lies are disseminated in America by a campaign, a systemic campaign. And if there's one thing that has to be done is to fight back. That's what we do. We have to fight back. And you fight back with the truth. We've learned in the long history of our people that if somebody says that they want to kill you, believe them. And these people who want to kill us enjoy the support now of young Americans who support our killers and our rapists and our would-be destroyers. That has to be reversed.
This is not insignificant at all, because you see the verbiage, right? If you state that Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza, which is precisely what it's doing, then you are supporting Hamas, and hence, in return, that means you are pro-Hamas and you want to kill Jews. That's the mental gymnastic there. And this took place 5 months ago, okay? This is this year's JNS Summit. And that's just his speech. Then there's this great speech. There's a couple of really hilarious ones, because I want to actually go through them. The information war, as they themselves stress and state, is number one. You do not hold an entire multi-day conference, collect all of your Jews from around the globe that own anything, right? Meta, Facebook, whatever, just everybody, senators of US. And you don't just call in this crisis crisis summit and talk about the number one issue, and then simultaneously think that the number one issue is just not an issue enough to kill somebody over. Again, this one is a 6-hour video. There are a lot of different videos from different days. There's no shortage of very interesting content in there because they're just so detached, so out of touch, truly. This is the representative from Meta.
We simplified content policies and removed restrictions on topics like immigration and gender identity to allow for more open discussions and debate. These changes, which have begun in the US, will impact many of you, and I believe for the better. Our policies are industry-leading in protecting Jewish people and Israelis on our platforms. Our hateful conduct policy includes specific protections for Israelis and Jews.
So basically, they loosened the speech control around some topics so that they can put all of those resources towards one topic, the Jewish topic.
We banned Holocaust denial and distortion back in 2020. We changed industry thinking on this issue, designating denial as hate speech rather than misinformation.
Like, they gotta be out of touch, right? You basically aren't just misinformed for thinking Holocaust didn't happen. You're a hateful person who wants to kill Jews. Like, that's the premise they're going with. And it's fascinating to be sitting, to be watching this, and they're just sitting with a room full of Jews, all from US, oftentimes. Perfect English. They just absolutely are engraved in our society, 100%, and they're running our lives. They're running our speech. And now this is not enough, because even though they have Google and Facebook and many other things, right now we know that that's not enough, so they're doing more. They took, in my opinion, control of TPUSA, because think about TPUSA not just as some random company. It's a speech platform. It's a free speech platform. So now TPUSA is going to be like, this was number one thing that I was keeping an eye on. I knew what trajectory Charlie was on with all of his content, the whole focus group he held called Am I Anti-Semitic? And there was just these Gen Z students being highly critical of Israel, him and his appearances in various interviews, how he was becoming more and more critical. He was completely disgusted with the way he's being treated, and I think we should watch some of that, even though I have pleaded prior. But it's important to get the full picture of what's happening here. The number one thing is speech, because that's the new weapon, as Netanyahu just recently claimed, correct? We know this.
And what we have to do is we have to secure that part of the base of our support in the United States. That is being challenged systematically. A lot of this is done with money. Money of NGOs, vast. Money of governments, vaster. Okay? We have to fight back. How do we fight back? Our influencers. I think you should also talk to them if you have a chance. To that community, they're very important. And secondly, we're going to have to use the tools of battle. You know, the weapons change over time. You can't fight today with swords. That doesn't work very well. Okay, and you can't fight with cavalry. That doesn't work very well. And you have these new things, you know, like drones, things like that. I won't get into that, but we have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we're engaged. And the most important ones are the social media.
I don't understand. I keep saying this, and I'll probably keep saying it. I don't understand how people like Mike Dice, was it Mike? Mike Dice, maybe Mark Dice, and even Matt Walsh, and I feel pain in saying that. I was such a huge supporter of Matt Walsh, and lately I can't seem to watch him. I like him enough to know about the Sweet Baby Gang or whatever that was. So I used to watch him. I love his sarcasm. I really do think I like him. But at least I guess he's with Daily Wire, so let's just, maybe he'll figure out, maybe there's a contract, maybe whatever, or maybe he's just really just not seeing anything wrong with this whole picture. But Mark Dice, the guy who was like all about the Illuminatis and this and that, and then all of a sudden he just can't see basic patterns, can't see an obvious takeover. A foreign nation that has a key to our CIA, and this one is actually quite fascinating and interesting. It is 100% true. There's such thing as an Israeli account, and which literally has been around for 35 plus years. It means that the Mossad has the keys to CIA. The Mossad and CIA are one and the same. However, whatever our guys in the CIA are American guys in the CIA, they do not have the back door to Mossad. It's not a reciprocal type of, relationship. This is an abomination of espionage. This has never happened in human history. And this literally means we are, for the most part, infiltrated. The reason why I think it's not full blown is because obviously it's not easy to control everyone perfectly, right? You can pay all the money in the world, but people are people. You still gonna have people that grow into these positions that have their own plans. Like Donald Trump probably has his own plans, and he has high ego. Hence, he's not just going to allow puppeteering, even though right now it appears like he's 100% puppeteered, right? But every now and then, when BB goes too far, we hear a rumor that he yelled at him or got angry. Or a good way to look at it is, if he was fully controlled, we would be in full-blown war with Iran. There's no way we would not be fighting that war, because what they really want to see is American soldiers dying, Americans and Muslims killing each other. That would be the most ultimate best case scenario for them, because now the white Christian goyim are fighting their enemy, and their enemy most likely is not really an enemy, rather a creation of them to sweep Europe with and the white race. But anyway, let's continue her for another second.
We banned content with harmful stereotypes about Jews, such as the claim that Jews run the world or other major institutions.
This is classic. Did you hear her? We ban content that claims Jews run the world. Now, in the same summit, this is excellent.
And my friends, I think the reason for that is that we're losing the digital war. Okay, they're getting their information from TikTok and X, whatever it is, and we're losing that war. When you think about it, the masters of the universe are Jews. We've got Altman and AI, we got Zuckerberg, we got Sergey Brin, we got the group across the board, Jan Combs, founded WhatsApp. It's us.
We banned content with harmful stereotypes about Jews, such as the claim that Jews run the world or other major institutions.
The masters of the universe are Jews.
Oh my God. Between that, the other, and Ping Pong 2, where was he? I closed it maybe. Like, can you imagine like the pathologicalness of this? So their prime minister gets up and says, this is digital war, the most important thing right now, all hands on deck, this is what we need to focus on. Then he says how to build this, we have to build it on truth. The foundation needs to be truthful. And all this talks about the Lions of Judah, which just struck me a little bit weird, okay? The security company that everyone's criticizing and wondering their involvement, the ones who seemingly didn't really do the basic thing to try and help Charlie not to die. Like, none of them had blood in their hands. I know some of you are 100% convinced that only means that he didn't die and there was no blood, but I'm going to think that they didn't attempt to touch him. They just let him bleed out very quickly, because it's clear that he was supposed to die. And those of you who actually, I have to insert this, in one sense, you're claiming that what was on him was a blood bag, Hollywood stunt, In another hand, you're saying there was no blood. So even if it was fake blood, there still would need to be blood because we saw it gushing out. So what happened to it? So your own arguments just don't make sense sometimes. And it's just really funny when people are just like, I'm 100% convinced because Erika slipped up on her speech and Kash Patel said, I'll see you in Vahalila, whatever the hell. And then there's no blood and all these things, a chair went through. It's just Jesus Christ. Anyway, let's go back to the topic. So that's a little bit from this JNS Summit. Needless to say, 5 months ago, they're hardcore. This is just all hands on deck. This is number one thing is happening. And TPUSA is their thing. It was propped up and brought up to be a Zionist arm. All of a sudden, they're just starting to question the narrative. And then these people like Mark Dice types, right? Including Nick Fuentes. That one I just don't get because I really go back and forth on that guy. I'm not one of those who's going to jump and be like, everybody's a controlled opposition. I think he's just young and he's doing his thing. He's trying to come mainstream. Imagine how effective Charlie must have been that pushed, that actually talking and criticizing Jews became mainstream to a point where Nick Fuentes got pushed to mainstream.
So I've been to Israel many times. The whole country's a fortress. When I first heard this story, I still had the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border. You cannot go 10 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that is an IDF soldier, right? The whole country is surveilled.
So first, this is 1 year ago, right? So actually it's the summit. This happened prior to the summit. So this happens prior to the summit and he goes on this trajectory, right? He allows conversations with Dave Smith. He has talked about how that's not allowed, right? He's been told he's not allowed to talk to Dave Smith or Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens. So he already starts feeling the insane pressure, which he gives this big outburst on Megyn Kelly just 2 months ago, right? Just 2 months ago. Including that this is the time where the message gets posted on August something that he is afraid that Israel might kill him. If you have not seen it, this is on Megyn Kelly's channel. Just type Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk pushback against Israel. It is 17 minutes. The reason I'm not going to play because every single word in here is important. They are literally just venting what kind of despicable treatment they're getting by their own Israeli friends. This is not insignificant at all. This is major. So you have the guy coming out just talking, and this is not a singular incident. Again, he's open to these debates now, okay? For an entire year, he's questioning Israel and he's just doing all this. Then Israel 5 months ago holds a summit where number one issue becomes to combat the speech. And if anyone with the 2 brain cells has noticed about the October 7th speech, like nobody can talk about anything without saying, I condemn Hamas and October 7th and Jewish people have the right to do. They can't literally talk until they say all this before they can get to their point. That's how threatened everybody feels to even speak. So you're going to tell me that this is not an issue? Their asset propped up to be a Zionist president one day is not an issue to come out and play?
My contention here is that some in the pro-Israel camp are so knee-jerk about calling you anti-Semitic or getting deeply offended if you say anything that doesn't align with their narrative, that it undermines their own cause. And I have to tell you, I find it very irritating because I do feel like some of us have earned the right to have some credibility on the subject of Israel and don't want to be called those names.
Earned the right to have some credibility, but you can see his body language and stuff. He just can't wait to actually chime in. And it's interesting because people are saying, oh, there was a New York Post letter that Bibi Netanyahu released where Charlie Kirk is giving them PR advice and all that. And they're taking that as if that's proof that this didn't have anything to do with Israel. How is that the case? So if you were to watch this, you would see that that's precisely the type of response he would try to give them. Kind of like, I love you guys, I love Israel, and you are losing this PR war, including when it pertains to me, you know? So I don't understand how they read that letter, if that's a real letter even, but even if it is a real letter, I don't know how they read that and not realize that, yes, a guy who's at all costs trying to plead to them that he's still their friend and ally, but he should be able to criticize and give them PR advice for them not to fail this horrendously like they have. That sounds accurate. I mean, I'm a nobody and I keep giving my Jewish friends advice through my channel saying this is the worst thing you can do for PR. Like, if I was you, I wouldn't be doing this. I would be doing this instead. So it's just insane.
When we have some mild pushback on some of the overreaches, whether it's, you know, whether they're winning or losing the propaganda war right now, and my contention is they've begun to lose it.
So, yeah, these people could reach out to Netanyahu and say, hey, you're losing the propaganda war. Here's what you can do. Nothing wrong with that. That doesn't clear Israel from this issue.
The same people who say you can criticize Israel, that's fine. We won't call you anti-Semitic if you criticize Israel. Now, turn around immediately and say you're anti-Semitic for even raising that. You don't want to alienate people who are openly your friends by going nuts in your crackdowns on mild pushback on anything related to Israel. Now you take it.
I'm so glad you brought this up, and I would second that. Megan, I think I have a bulletproof resume showing my defense of Israel, both on campus, on social media, to great, you know, let's just say mockery and scorn at times, because I believe it, right? I believe in the scriptural land rights given to Israel. I believe in fulfillment of prophecy. And again, I'm not a theologian, but I'm a Christian. My life was changed in Israel, that repeatedly.
Same.
And however, Megan, you're hitting on something very potent and important. The behavior by a lot, both privately and publicly, are pushing people like you and me away. Not like we're going to be pro-Hamas, not like we're going to, but we're like, honestly, the way you are treating me is so repulsive. I have text messages, Megan, calling me an anti-Semite. I am learning biblical Hebrew and writing a book on the Shabbat. I honor the Shabbat, literally the Jewish Sabbath. I visit Israel and fight for it. And there's another article out in the Times of Israel today. I could read it on air. I was just reading before I got on. Charlie, what are you doing? Like, what am I doing? I'm sorry. Like, let's just take a step back here. Like, I'm an American citizen. Yes, I want Israel to win. Yes, I'm a Christian.
See, that is a problem because he equates Israel and Christianity into one and the same. And what Israel knew very well is when he's on this train, starting to question Israel, eventually there's no way, if you dig, you actually are curious and you're running a research and you're starting to become a theologian, you will end up realizing that you've been fed complete and utter garbage, not Christianity. So
some of the mess, and you've seen how I've been treated, Megan, by some, not all, by some.
No, it's very irritating.
It's
been
almost
so
as if
unfair. They were coming after you after a turning point for, among other things, that you had Dave Smith there. Dave Smith is allowed to criticize Israel.
All right. So you get the point, guys. This goes on for 17 minutes. This is, and he says, we're not allowed. Like, you go and watch it. He says, no. It's not that we're not allowed to even speak to them. We're not allowed. So what does that mean? They're coming after TPUSA just because you had Dave Smith on, or we're not allowed to speak and all that. So you can see that they don't know what to do. This is just, 2 months ago, and this is right around the time when X post was posted that Charlie Kirk fears that Israel might kill him. I don't take such things lightly, especially when I'm seeing everything pointing to that direction without cartoonishly. And majority of it is their doing. They don't understand it. They're overdoing it, overplaying their hands, and everybody's just awake now. Well, not everybody. Clearly, my beef is with the fact that not everybody is awake yet. And then the event takes place, and every single thing about it is a lie. We're told this guy shot Charlie Kirk, while we don't see any evidence of that. We don't see any footage of him. We just see some vertically cropped images. We see some kind of rifle that could not have shot him, not the type of caliber they're claiming. We don't have an exit wound. We don't have any evidence. Everybody's speculating off of some one bad quality video. One or two here and there angles. We see a lot of shady behavior happening around the crime scene. The crime scene gets revamped and just completely deleted entirely. That's not suspicious to you, Mark Dice? I don't know why am I picking on him right now. Then we're told his family is saying this. He confessed everywhere, but then he's not cooperating and he's not confessing. It's just nothing matches anything remotely coherent. Yet, none of it just rings a bell. And then, of course, we start seeing TPUSA just making random claims about stuff that you're just like, where'd you get that from? What are you talking about, right? So first they come out, Andrew Kovolt, and he talks about how the surgeon said he's, man of steel. The bullet was just right underneath his skin and blah, blah, blah. That gave us a lot of interesting content, actually, because if the bullet was right under the skin, if let's say that part is real, then there's only one way that could have happened. Oftentimes fragmented, I think they're also called frangible or something, bullets. It's been used since the 90s. It's not sci-fi. It's an exotic bullet, usually just you cannot obtain it as a civilian. It's usually Mossad or CIA that uses these bullets for precision assassinations. And usually it just, upon contact with the skin, it just fragments and just pretty much just destroys the internal body, but there's no exit wound and then not much else appears on the physical, like outside of the body. So that's one crazy lie that he comes and says that, even though we have we have no autopsy, we don't have any footage, high quality setup. That's another thing I want you to see. I want you to understand this. Look at this. I'm going to leave this muted, but this is his production, okay? This is what he does on campus events. This was the camera that got taken down because if you see, this was a wide angle camera, which means you would have been able to see everything you need to see. So why don't we have this footage? That alone should be already an evidence of suppression. This highly produced show with cameras everywhere at all angles, side, behind, crowd, everything. The wealth of information that they could just give us, and we could literally just solve this case in 3 seconds. Whether it was a Hollywood hoax or whether it was CIA operation or whether it was Tyler Robinson. So, of course, that's not the case. We have only a grainy, initial videos that came out, and then all other videos that are coming out at this point not to be trusted, even if it's spin-off of the original, because now everybody wants to make their story believable, their hypothesis and theory believable, so hence they just edit the videos in however many ways. And one of the biggest and most important things about subversion is actually to create so much confusion in the public so that you cannot come to a sensible conclusion despite all the evidence or the lack of evidence. Basically, as long as they can strip you from being an analytical thinker, that is a win. So now we can actually see so many people are all of a sudden experts in everything, and they have concluded 100%, some literally 100%, as to what has happened in this case. That they're winning. That's a level of moronic idiocracy that is hard to fathom. So now if we come post TPUSA members are completely seeming moved on. And I don't mean to, go after Erika Kirk, but there's a lot of people who just did not buy her tears. And I'm not saying anything about what I didn't buy is her speech. People grieve differently. People have their way. And sometimes I've lost people. And there was a time when after the third loss, I felt like I was losing it a little bit. And sometimes people would mention her death and I would burst out laughing just because I was trying not to cry. So I would just burst into laughter and confuse the heck out of people around me. So grief does weird things to people. And however, her speech, and that's what I didn't buy, right? It's a speech, and it's also anytime she supposedly cracks, she comes back way too quickly. This just doesn't happen when you naturally crack. You take a moment to collect yourself before you continue the speech. There's just something that didn't sit well with me. But this clip has been criticized so much, but the part that caught my attention.
I mean, we are so blessed to have more work than we even could ever dream of. I mean, it's beautiful, and Turning Point Action, full steam ahead, so powerful. All of the other programs within Turning Point USA, everyone knows what they're doing. Everyone has their marching orders.
That right there, everyone has their marching orders. That didn't settle well with me. Okay, of course, many things about it didn't settle well with me. The excitement about so much content, but it's isolated. You don't, maybe she feels like she's around friends and they all love Charlie, and she feels like she can just be whatever. I'm not going to judge that part. Everyone has their marching orders, and she says it twice in this. And the way she says it, it's as if she's not the one giving the marching orders. Who gave the marching orders, lady? You're supposed to be the new CEO. Did you give the marching orders? Sounds like you also have the marching orders. Anyway, maybe I'm reading too much into it. And then, again, post, right? We're talking about post stuff. Frank Turek starts giving campus tours, immediately strengthening the Zionist tie, right? Zionist Christian angle. It's all about Zionist Christianity now. Like all of their tours and all of just everything. They're talking about how it created this thing where people that had never gone to church and atheists are now going to church and all that. Yet they're pushing Americans towards church. And what are they doing with those churches? Let's take a look, okay? We are going to take a look at a FARA registration that they filed. And this is quite significant also, because these are all dots to connect that the dots are screaming at us, okay? They're not even like random. Basically, post the shooting, we see non-stop push for this Zionist Christendom, the Christianity through Zionism. Then we see Bibi Netanyahu pretty much just might as well just move to US, because he's just constantly addressing US Americans, constantly talking to us, constantly on the news. Immediately at the event, he tweeted about Charlie Kirk's death before even the president did. And at the time when they heard about the shooting, Trump and Bibi accounts posted exactly at the exact same time, 3:02 p.m. Eastern time, okay? That can suggest only one thing, because I don't believe in that level of coincidences. So hence, the same media account manager is managing both President Trump's and Israeli Prime Minister's account. That's the only explanation. Even if they were sitting next to each other at that moment, I doubt they decided to say, okay, let's do this together, okay? Ready? Go. Even that is unlikely if they're handling their own social medias. But of course they're not. So either way, and then again, Zionist push from every angle possible. Every angle possible. This douchebag.
Anti-Jew protesters, these pro-Gaza protesters, these terrorist sympathizers. That's what they are. Let's call it out for what it is. It's disgusting. It's vile. It's inhumane. Listen, the Democrat Party is being radio silent on this. It's disgusting, and they should be calling it out. It's pretty easy to come on and say, hey, we're pro-Israel, we're a pro-Jewish people, we're pro-America. It's that simple. But instead, the Democrats are supporting this anti-Israel message being spouted by their supporters out there in Columbia and Yale. And Republicans are pro-Israel, we're pro-America, and we're pro-protecting Jewish citizens not only in Israel, but across the world, even here in America. That is our stance. It couldn't be more clear, and their stance couldn't be more disgusting.
Does that make you feel like that was an American talking about American conservatism? This is the TPUSA's new face, the COO or whatever. I don't care to remember his name. And one of the biggest things that's taking place now is this. We talked about FARA registrations before. So FARA registration is the registration that AIPAC is not registered with. This is also the same registration that JFK was pushing for AIPAC to register as a foreign agent. And they never did. They kept stringing it along. And here's the thing, the rabbis play a huge role in this. The whole rabbinic Jewry is extremely important here because they're the goblins behind the scene. And you've probably seen all of these big world leaders with rabbis and with yarmulkes and all that. That's just not random. That's not just like, oh, hospitable. Yeah, just come to Israel because, if that was just a tradition of world powers to do, then every other world power would be doing something similar. It's just not, this is very different. Now, FARA registration was filed on September 27 this year. September 27, 2005, Israel Ministry of Foreign Affairs filed a FARA registration. The name of the registrant is Show Faith by Works. Okay? Show Faith by Works. Now, this FARA registration states, describe the nature of the business, right? So, Christian outreach through various grassroots and digital targeting of Christians in the Western U.S. U.S. is extremely important to Israel to remain sheepish, okay, about Christianity. We will create a mobile museum to display at churches. This reminds me of how they take you to Holocaust Museum, to show you what they did with Holocaust to make us all believe how it all went down and just control the exact precise details of that. They're going to do here now with October 7. Is what I'm guessing, but definitely targeting Christians. We will create a mobile museum to display at churches, Christian colleges, and Christian events. We will target and distribute pro-Israel information online and through targeted geofencing and digital online tools. We will have teams of people reaching out to churches and pastors and possibly even Christian social media influencers. Some of this is still undecided and fluid, but these are the outlets we have planned and proposed. That is absolutely bananas, okay? A foreign country, a non-Christian country, wants to control and target Christian youth, Christian events, Christian pastors, Christian influencers to push pro-Israel information. I mean, they really are saying it, and those who aren't seeing it, they're just saying, oh, no, that has nothing to do with it. What does that have to do with killing Charlie? Like, what? How? Is just people's brains are mush now? Okay, that's 3.2 million budget for Greystone HR. So for HR, 50,000. For grassroots staff, 1.5 million. Equipment, $500,000-ish. Targeted media budget. So that's the budgeting. These are all the people that they are already putting in place. So anyway, I'm not going to go through all of it. I think this is starting to pick up. I already had so many people send this to me, and I was already on it when they send it to me. So it's just definitely picking up here and there. But you sometimes wonder, like, okay, it's picking up from where I sit, but I turn around and people act as clueless. It's so interesting as to what's going to happen. Before I actually wrap up this episode, which is getting very long, I do want to say, Armenian viewers, so we've been very strong with our Christian values and being Christian in essence and not falling for this bullshit type of Christianity. However, we are targeted because, as I mentioned earlier in the video, we have been truly a sharp bone in Israel's throat. They feel very cocky and comfortable that they can eradicate us fully. Sadly, that's probably true. We have lost, but we haven't lost when it comes to Christianity yet, because the recent outburst by the nation when when they were trying to bring this satanic musician who was spitting on the cross to Armenia to open the Coca-Cola concert. Armenians all together just basically rejected and canceled the concert. I do want to one day talk about that, but that just gave me such pride that every single, doesn't matter young or elderly, they have their true Christian essence intact, and it's not something they go to church to learn. It's just now embedded in them. So when they see bullshit, they see it right through it, and they saw that this is a disrespectful spit on our culture after they just, you know, ethnically cleansed Artsakh. So anyway, we basically were able to cancel it. But now there's the same way that Israel is focused on brainwashing, continue to brainwash Americans to be pro-Zionist. There's this thing that a friend of mine shared that is very, very curious, and we have to be very careful. So this is targeted towards Armenians of America, okay? Specifically America again. $100 million to advance Judeo-Christian faith. We don't need Judeo-Christian faith, guys. So I really hope this Khachkar, and I can't stand that they're using, it's all, and when I say they, whoever's behind it seems to be, at least from the face, an Armenian family. He owns Japonica Partners and Khachkar Studios and all of these foundations. I don't know who the guy is. I don't know if it's like a, you know, Armenian Jew, because we probably have those too. I think our prime minister's wife is a Jew. How surprised are you? That's why we lost everything. And now, I think in America, especially in Los Angeles, New York, New Jersey, Boston, where the Armenian hubs are, I hope if there's any Armenian viewers, I actually do not know if I have many Armenian viewers, but this needs to be spread around so that Armenians are very careful not to fall for this and not to send their children if it has to do with this Khachkar Studios. We don't need Armenians to go into praising Israel with their Judeo-Christian faith. We can keep the Armenian one-natured apostolic understanding of Christ and Christianity in our lives, hopefully. And this is a huge aggressive, I mean, this is more aggressive than, $100 million effort to brainwash Armenians of US. So anyway, I hope I made my point. This is a long episode, but I'm going to put it out there. The war on Christianity is real, and it is number one. And again, because it got long, I'm not going to play some rabbi clips to tell you how much they cannot stand Christians and how we ought to die, but it's probably sprinkled around my episodes. So if you're new here, check that out. Check out my episodes, or just go do your own research. Go listen to rabbis. Just check out what's the Israeli understanding of Christians. What's their opinion of Christians? There's actually a lot of content out there. So I highly suggest you looking into it. They do not like Christians. And that's one of the biggest reasons that I cannot just denounce Christianity. Something is up. If you're fighting it this hard for centuries, then something is up here. There are so many people who have just decided that it's all dogma, it's all the same crap, it's, Christ is fake and this and this and that. Well, one, we know that Christ existed and he died. Just as a person, we there's, as far as whether that's God or not, that's up to per person's belief. But when I see every effort possible spent to kill a dead person, yet again, they killed Christ, then they have been spending their entire lifetime, generation through generation, to kill him again. That's the goal. This cannot just be nothing, okay? This cannot be nothing. Even if all it is that Christ represents truth. Forget about God, forget about the stories, forget about all the details, the nonsense, noise, doesn't matter. Christ represents truth. And truth gets persecuted. It's pretty much that simple for me. And that alone makes me want to learn more. That alone makes me want to actually be Christian, real Christian, understand why our forefathers were so convinced that Christ was, God, I don't know. I don't think I will ever get there. I don't think that can ever be my position personally. But I actually have a lot of respect and humility to keep pushing and digging and trying to find answers. And this is why I won't play the part where just so many Christians have abandoned Christianity. The point is to mock and laugh at Christians and Christianity, and they have turned the Western Christianity into a laughing stock because they are a laughing stock. They're a bunch of sheep following Israeli propaganda, talking about Judeo-Christian values. But it is, I think, more important than ever right now to try to learn what is or was real Christianity and what those values look like. This is where I would invite people to go to Armenia, actually. And a lot of American missionaries go to Armenia and they lose it because they just realize they knew nothing about Christianity, because they see the essence of it in the people who have carried the cross and the persecution for all these years until today. Even though we're being killed, our history is being denied to us, our history is being revised. Nobody even knows the details and the background of anything, the significance of Armenia in ancient times, including biblical times. And they successfully either bury it or mock it and make people look the other way. I think it's important to fully understand some of these things before denying them. Something very sinister is happening, and the devil now is playing its cards just out in the open. And yes, I'm calling Bibi Netanyahu a devil. Jewish people who are good, moral individuals would be good to criticize it as well, instead of accepting it or defending it. I think that's all. Thank you guys for being here. If you made it this far, please consider subscribing. You can see my numbers are not moving at all. And I know that you are trying very hard. And I know I try very hard. So I know that this channel is flatlined for a reason. These are not the type of topics they want. This entire episode was about the fact how much they don't want this to come out. And even when it's a small account, this just gets labeled, marked, and we have to see if there are ways to break through that. That's all. Have a good day.